is Buki Oishini. I'm a medical doctor by training. I am a data analyst by profession. And by passion and expertise, I'm a book lover. I'm currently studying for an MA in Comparative Literature and Criticism at the University of London Goldsmiths College. And today I'm going to talk about Faceless by Amma Darko. Now, the reason I'm talking about this book is I've had some comments from parents whose children are reading this book, so they're worried about the content of this book. They've not read it, but they've heard that it contains some really serious themes, and they're wondering if it's appropriate for their children. So I'll just give you a brief synopsis of the book first, and then I'll give you my opinion on what I think about the book. So the book is called Faceless. It's by Ghanaian author Amma Darko, and it is on the syllabus for the West African Examinations Council, Waec, and Neco as well, for secondary schools in West Africa. So it's a very important book. It's centers around Fofo, who's a 14-year-old street girl. She lives on the streets near Agbo Market, in an area called Sodom and Gomorrah. Sodom and Gomorrah, the street children all live there. There are gangs there. She herself is in a little bit of a gang for protection. So they all, huddle together and keep each other safe. And it's a place of quite suffering and darkness, but there are rays of light. There is friendship and kinship among the street children in Sodom and Gomorrah, and that is a bit characteristic of the book. While the book deals with serious themes, it's broken apart by humor. It's broken apart by there's light in the book, and there's a bit of distance to some of the themes in the book, so you're able to look at the context in which the characters find themselves in, and you're not completely immersed in the serious themes. Another main character in the book, and one who's actually quite relevant to the parents, is Kabria. Kabria is this stressed family woman. She's the wife to Adade. She's the mother of 3 children, and she works for a non-governmental organization who is quite involved in what's going on with Fofo. And most importantly, she is the owner of a battered 1975 Volkswagen Beetle called Creamy. You have to read this book, if only to read about Creamy. Creamy is hilarious. And so the book overall has lots of themes. There are lots of themes. There's a theme of street children, the plight of street children. There is the theme of sexual abuse. The opening scenes, Fofo is someone tries to sexually assault Fofo, and she fights him off. Some other themes are female agency, poverty, the determinants of poverty. There's societal norms. There's teenage sex. There is, as a theme, there is superstition and what it does in life. And it's a very powerful book, trying to that squeezes lots of themes in together, in serious themes together with some degree of lightness. Of most interest to parents would be Kabria's opinions, because Kabria has a 15-year-old daughter who is which is a similar age to Fofo. Fofo is 14, and Kabria undergoes certain experiences with her daughter which contrast against those of Fofo. Fofo is thrown into a really grown-up world, and she grows up really, really fast. But with Obia, it's more and more controlled. And one of the important ideas in the book is that important scene in the book is that one day Obia finds Fofo trying to hide. Sorry, I'm distracted by the phone ringing. Obia tries to hide a pamphlet, and her mother finds it, and her mother looks under the pillow where she stuffs it, and she finds it's a Planned Parenthood pamphlet about sex and sexuality, and she doesn't know what to do. And Kabria's concerns mirror the concerns of parents who come to me and say, this book, do I really want my children reading about these themes? And I'll just tell you the answer straight away. Yes, you do want your children reading about these themes. Now, if this is being read in a secondary school, you know that 1 out of 4 girls in that class have faced sexual assault or sexual abuse. And some have been able to speak about it, and some haven't been able to speak about it. And one powerful thing about literature is the distance that it gives. Literature gives you a tool. You can speak about yourself using Obia as words. You can speak about yourself using Fofo. You can say, no one should have done that to Fofo. No one had a right to do that to Fofo. What you're invariably saying is, no one has a right to do that to me. And that's one of the greatest powers of literature. Or what I would suggest is, parents, yes, have your kids read it, and even better, read it yourself and ask them, What do you think? What should Fofo have done? What should Obia have done in this circumstance? Now I'm going to read some of the things Kabria thinks, because it is quite aligned to what parents' concerns are. And one of the quotes she says, when she's thinking about what to do with Obia and the sexual health pamphlets, she says to herself, one could never be sure of Obia's generation. They were a different ball game altogether. When she was Obia's age, she used to wait to be asked questions by her parents before she answered. And when she did, it was with her hands behind her and her head bowed as a show of respect. But her children nowadays looked her straight in the face and they bawled out replies to questions that she was still formulating in her head. Her own mother never talked about boyfriends with her, let alone sex. She lived, it seemed, under the impression that Kabria would never talk to a man until the day she was destined to marry, when the Holy Ghost would somehow conjure the most befitting groom by her side to exchange her I do with. And although Kabria would be doing and saying and learning everything for the first time, she would get it all right and crisply perfect. So we can see that we know the contrast between, generations, they're different. And Kabria tries to battle that and to deal with that. And one important thing that she tries to deal with is the idea of other people's children. She reads the pamphlet and she sees that the pamphlet says suggested reading for ages 10 to 24. A mother's shock with the reality of her child's generation, a reality she wishfully thought applied to other people's daughters, not hers. Other people's daughters can read about sex at the age of 10. Other people's daughters can learn that, yes, there are people out there who will want to abuse you and these are the things you need to do. Yeah, other people's children can read about that at 10, not mine. And that is wishful thinking, really. And Kabria is worried. This book was written, my version was published in 2003. There's a lot of mention about HIV and AIDS in here, so it was probably at the very height of HIV and AIDS in Ghana. So she kept pounding on, with HIV and AIDS, can we afford to say that? Can we afford to stick our head in the sand and wait and not tell these children anything? And that was one of the concerns in the book. Eventually, Obia does give Kabria the pamphlets and says, here, have them, read them. And Kabria felt glad that her daughter felt free and uninhibited enough to give it to her. But then she realized that even though she felt they were, my kids are free with me, she realized that their freedom, their free expression of themselves was only within the limits of what she perceived them to be. Children. Obia was moving out of that realm, yet it was as though Kabria felt so comfortable in her perception of Obia as a child that she failed to see beyond that into the suppressed questions of her growing needs. So yes, serious themes, yes, important ideas, but they're important ideas that should be discussed. So Faceless is not a book for a child to read, and yeah, you can read it, you can write the exam, you'll grow. There's lots of things to learn from this book. There's lots of empathy to be had. There's future activists are being born reading this book, children who've never thought about street children, because if you're in a class and you're writing the exam, you're privileged. So there's wonderful learning to be had, but of greater value actually is the conversations that this book will bring about. That will bring about wonderful, great growth. So yes, I suggest children read it. I suggest parents read it. So I'm going to finish by reading something Kabria also thought, and I will end it. It's about generations and how the generations are different. And so once I read that, I'm going to play music from Kabria's father's generation. And she said her father used to listen to E.T. Mensah and the Tempos. And part of the reason of literature, especially reading from other cultures that you're not familiar with, is you learn new things. And I'd never heard of E.T. Mensah and the Tempos. I'm from Nigeria, so I'm going to play that. And it's called All For You. So the final thing is, so Kabria thinks to herself, one generation to the other was sometimes like the horizon, so far away, and yet so clear to see. It seemed so near. I hope you found that video on Faceless, Amma Darko useful. If you would like more information on the books, if you would want to talk about themes or an approach to Waec and Neco with these books, do send me a line. I'm at Renike Speaks, all one word, Renike Speaks, Renike Speaks, on Instagram. You could also leave a message down below. If there are any other books that you're really interested in, any other West African books that you're really interested in and you'd like me to read and review for you, let me know, leave a line, and I will do that.
All for you, it all for you. All for you, it all for you. I dey wait you, Papa. I dey wait you, Mommy. I dey wait you, Papa. Ooh. All for you, it all for you. 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 I dey wait you, Papa. I dey wait you, Mommy. I dey wait you, Papa. Oh, all for you, it all for you. All for you, it all for you.